Now I'm gonna start recording and I'm just gonna ask you simple questions right now. So can I have your full name, please?
Sure, my name is William Michael Spade, but I go by the name of Bill Spade.
Spade?
That's correct.
Okay. Bill, Mr. Bill. Okay. Okay. And your date of birth?
August 2nd, 1959.
59. And your place of birth?
New York, New York.
New York. And your cultural background?
I don't know. What do you mean by that? Just
Yeah, the culture, if you have any culture.
well, just white American Catholic.
Okay. And how many? Yeah?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Excuse me?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. How many years have you been living in New York?
Okay, so I was born in New York City in 1959. I lived for 2 years in the Bronx, and then in 1961 it would be my family moved to Staten Island, and I've been a resident of the borough of Staten Island ever since 1961.
Wow. How do you like it over there?
I like it. It's close to New York City with the excitement, and yet when you come home to Staten Island, it's more like the suburbs with private houses and things like that, and everybody has their little piece of property. So it's close to everything, yet you can kind of retreat to a suburban lifestyle.
Nice. That's nice. So is it
Yeah.
kind of like quiet, but like you can go to the city if you want to do something?
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, all neighborhood things and, all different neighborhoods that make up Staten Island, and then you jump on a train or a bus and you can get into the city and the Staten Island ferry, of course. You know?
Yeah, that's kind of similar to where I live. Well, I live in Boston, but you can like go to like Randolph would be considered like the suburban area, and like Braintree,
Right.
and then you can take a bus down to like downtown Boston to do activities if you want to.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have a spouse and any children?
Yeah, I have a wife, Cynthia, and we were born in 1993. And then we had a son, Billy Spade, just like myself. He was born in December of 94. And then my other son, John Spade, who's now 15. He'll be 16 in July. But he was born July 2nd, 2001. So just about 2 months before 9/11.
Oh, wow. Wow. And you were a firefighter.
Right. I graduated college in 1981, and I went to school with the intention of becoming a photojournalist, take pictures and write stories. However, I was told really to go to another state to get some training and a resume that I wouldn't start in New York at that job. And I didn't want to leave New York. I began working with my uncle, had a business in the city. And in January of 1984, I became a New York City police officer. And then just about 2 years later, it was December of 1985, that I like to say I was promoted to fireman at that time.
That's really nice. So you had like a lot of experience in like the law enforcement.
Right, law enforcement, civil service.
That's nice. That's really nice. Do you have any hobbies?
I love, have a lot of hobbies. I'm always active. So right now I enjoy golfing still.
Golf.
I have since teenage. Growing up in college, I played tennis. I was always into photography. I also do winemaking now. I love gardening, and I also I love calling bingo for the local swim club, and there they call me Bingo Bill. So I'm always active doing something and keeping busy.
That's really good. That's really nice. Sounds kind of like my dad. He enjoys golf and tennis and all those other stuff.
Right. You got to
Yeah.
keep active,
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm gonna start to ask questions about the events that took place. Um, so how do you recall the beginning of your day on 9/11?
How do I recall the beginning of my day on 9/11?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was at home with, knew I was scheduled to work that Tuesday, which 9/11 was a Tuesday, and I was scheduled to work that day, a 24-hour shift, which would mean I would go in at 7 in the morning. My tour started. I would go in at 7, and I would get off on Wednesday at 7 a.m. And the weather was great. We had just had a company picnic on that Sunday, which was like the 9th. And we had over 500 people show up for our picnic. So we had a great time at the picnic, and I guess everybody and I was still feeling on an upbeat from the picnic. And going to work, I always look forward to it. On that day, though, that was the 11th, the 11th, a Tuesday. My son, my 6-year-old, would be going for the first time on the school bus to school.
Wow.
Because that was their first day of school that day, Tuesday, September 11th in New York, for public schools. So my wife would have to get my one son up to the 2-month-old and bring him to the bus stop she was going to, and put my 6-year-old on the bus. So that was in my mind that was going to happen. I was going to miss that. However, I always enjoy going to work and being with the guys and working. So I remember getting up in that morning and looking in, taking a peek at my 2-month-old in his crib, and everything was good. And looking in at my 6-year-old, and he was still sleeping at the time, about 6:15 in the morning. And then heading off to work, and it was only about a 5-mile drive for me to get to work. And I remember when I arrived at work, shortly, maybe 20 to 7, something at that time. The firehouse. When I opened the door to the firehouse, the music was playing loudly, and I knew that the guys were all up at that time already. That they must have just had a run because everybody was up at that early time. And I knew one young guy, Dougie Miller, was working, because every time he came in, he got there early, and he would put on the music. So I knew Dougie was working for the day, and I remember going to get my cup of coffee that morning, and there was French vanilla coffee mate there, and there was a dozen rolls, and I knew with that another guy, Nicky Rassamando brought that in every time. So I knew he was around. And another friend of mine, Joe Muscali, was making French toast at the stove, and there was a small pound cake there. And I knew Alan Tarasarowitz, a little guy we called Taz, was working. So just by looking around and seeing things, even just seeing cars in the parking lot when I arrived, you know who was working or who was going to get off, and you kind of knew what to expect for the day. And with everybody being up already, the talk was of the picnic a couple of days before that, guys joking and laughing, and we were in a great mood around the kitchen table that morning, Do you want me to continue with my story then?
Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna ask you a question.
So our boss comes down. Mikey Russo was the boss for the day, and he tells us, guys, today at 1 o'clock we have collapse training up in the Bronx. And what that would mean is we'd have to make a trip up to the Bronx and do a little collapse training on how to remove somebody if some earth or whatever it was would collapse. And we were all senior guys. I had, I don't even know how many, 85, 2001, about 15 years on the fire department at that time. So that's a good amount of time, and a lot of guys had about that time. And so we were senior guys. We didn't have to be told what to do, and we knew by 1 o'clock collapse training mean we'd have to do the dishes in the firehouse, make the beds, and clean the floors, mop the floors, clean the rig. And we'd be leaving the firehouse probably at 11 o'clock. We'd probably get sandwiches at a deli, and we'd probably then head up to the Bronx and eat the sandwiches on our way for lunch, and then we do the collapse training. So that's what we thought was going to happen, and then alarm comes in, and it was for a nearby hospital close by to the firehouse, and they're reporting a steam leak at the hospital. And the rescue company goes, and the engine company goes. That's in the firehouse. I'm part of the rescue company. However, I'm assigned to work a one-man truck that day called Tactical Support 2.
Okay.
And I don't respond with the engine or the rescue because I only go when something is confirmed and when it's a large event,
Yeah.
And this is reported of a steam leak at a hospital, so I don't go. So all the companies go, and I'm the only person left back at the firehouse. And I remember them all leaving, and then I remember sitting at the firehouse, the front of the firehouse. We have a desk. We call it the house watch area, where somebody always has to be there, and you monitor people coming in and out of the firehouse, and then answer any phone calls. And I take that position at the desk, and I'm not sitting there for more than 2 minutes, and then the alarms go, not the alarms, excuse me, the telephone rings.
Yeah.
And it's an off-duty fireman from my company, but he worked the previous night in Queens, and he's driving home, and he calls me up on his cell phone, and he says, "Bill, I just saw a plane go into the Trade Center," and I remember telling him that nobody was at the firehouse at this moment. I'm not in the mood for fooling around because a lot of times guys love playing practical jokes and things like that. And I thought it was all part of a practical joke. And I said, I'm not in the mood for fooling around this morning. It's too nice of a day to be fooling around. And he said, no, this is for real. And I said, well, if it's for real, I got to hang up with you. And I hung up with him. And then I called my dispatcher, who was located on Roosevelt Island in New York City. And when I got him on the phone, he told me that that's what the reports were, that's what was reported, and nothing is confirmed yet. That all the units and all the guys, everybody was still responding, but nobody had gotten to the scene yet. And he told me that I should head out that way. It sounds real, and they're probably going to need me there. So I pack up my stuff and put it on the rig, and I jump on the truck and then now leave the firehouse. And it's about 13 miles from my firehouse to the World Trade Center from Staten Island. And I have to come over the Verrazano Bridge at first. And when I get to the Verrazano Bridge, I could see smoke coming from the World Trade Center. So I knew we had a fire. And my first thought at that point was, I said to myself, I'm going to be here all day. Meaning I'm working a 24-hour tour, that this event is going to keep me here for 24 hours, which meant no lunch with the guys, no dinner with the guys, no sleep for 24 hours, and that's what I thought of. This is some way to start your morning right away, something this big that's going to keep you here for 24 hours, and then I get to the top of the bridge, the Verrazano. And now I could see still smoke continuing from the building, and I hear them call for four more rescue companies, and then they say we have jumpers. So there's only 5 rescues in New York. When he's asking for 4, I know that my company, Rescue 5, will be right behind me very shortly. And then to say they have jumpers already, we're only about 10 minutes into the fire or whatever, and to be conditions to be that bad, or people are having to make that decision, I knew things must be bad, and I just wanted to get there to help out. I make my way through the borough of Brooklyn, and then before I can enter the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which brings me out into Manhattan, I'm stopped in traffic because of the tunnel is shut down. They're turning around all cars, all buses, and nobody's being allowed to enter the tunnel. And I'm kind of just stuck there waiting for my opportunity to get through. And I see everyone on the buses who has them, because they weren't prevalent to everyone, and that's a cell phone. And people on cell phones talking about what's happening.
Yeah.
And with that, I said to myself, man, my wife is going to know rather shortly that I'm here.
Yeah.
Because she knows any large event in the city, I'll be there in New York. And with cell phone usage now, which was just starting up really around that time, I said, well, she's going to find out. Somebody's going to call her and ask her if I'm working, and she'll say yes.
Yeah.
So that worried me a little, that she would know I'm responding there. And as I'm waiting for the tunnel to open up, I catch a glimpse of a plane coming down the Hudson River, and I watch that plane go around the Statue of Liberty, and I watch it circle back, and then I watch it crash right into the South Tower.
Wow.
And that's the second tower being hit. And my thought at the time, I remember seeing it hit. I remember seeing a large ball of flame that erupted. And when I saw that fire, I said, that is too much fire to put out. I had never seen that much fire, and I said, we got some job on our hands.
Yeah.
Was my thought. And with that, the tunnel seemed to open up for emergency traffic. I was able to make my way through the tunnel. I came out of the tunnel, and I make a right-hand turn on West Street. I'm only about a quarter of a mile from the World Trade Center. And as I go about 1 block or so, a block and a half, 2 blocks, I see a small car parked at a traffic light.
Yeah.
And the driver's door is open. And in the back of that small car, there's a part of the airplane crushed in the back of the car. And apparently the person was waiting for a red light. And when that part hit, they got out of the car. And my thoughts were, wow, maybe we're going to be lucky. Mm-hmm. Because over the years, I've gone through so many responses in the city where we could have lost a lot more life than we did, and something lucky happened, or the circumstances prevented us from getting more loss. And I said, maybe that's going to happen here today. And then as I drove up West Street, there was body parts everywhere.
Wow.
And I said, well, that's not going to be the case here anymore, because already I see too much death just on this street, I parked my truck west in Liberty, and they always tell you don't park too close to an event. If something happens or collapses, that you're going to ruin your truck.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, everything's going to be a collapse zone if these buildings come down. I'm just parking it there,
Mm-hmm.
With that, I get out of my truck, and I remember looking around, and debris is falling from the skies, large debris and everything. And other companies are being held back by their bosses from crossing the street because of all the debris that's fallen. Mm. It's a hazard just to try to cross the street. But I put on my gear, and I said, if I don't make it inside, I'll never help anybody standing here. So I run, and I make it inside. Mm-hmm. And I make it inside the Marriott Marquis Hotel. Okay. And with that, there's a chief there, Chief Crisano. Mm-hmm. And I see him. He's got a bunch of people around him. And I said, I'm not going to bother him at this moment. I'll wait till there's a lull in his being bothered, and then I'll go over to him. And I'm talking to a police officer off to the side, and he tells me, did you hear that he says to me, the Pentagon was just struck. Wow. And with that, I knew that I said to myself, we're under attack in our own country this day, and that really bothered me at that point. And then somebody got on the fire department radio, and they said another plane, the third plane, headed on into the towers. And somebody got right on after that, and they said, disregard that message. We've got a job to do. Yeah. And with that, I went over to the chief, and I asked him what I could do. And he says, you can go work out of the North Tower. Mm-hmm. And so I had to make a decision. I can make my way to the North Tower, the exterior of the building or the interior. Now, the interior was filling up people that were coming down the staircases and some out of the elevators. Yeah. And it was getting crowded. And the exterior of the building, there was still debris falling from the sky. However, there was an overhang which allowed you to hug underneath the overhang, hug the building, and make your way over to the North Tower. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I chose. I went that way with debris falling in front of me.
Yeah.
And when I got to the North Tower, it was motion activated doors that were in front of the building, and they would constantly. You can you can picture them opening and closing constantly the whole time. And I went inside, and the only person I saw right away was the fire department chaplain, Father Michael Judge, and I've known him for many years, different events, and I'd usually go up to him and say, "Hey, Father, you remember me?" And he'd say, "Sure, I remember you. Last time I saw you, I lent you $20, you know?" So he was a very cheerful guy, and on this day, he was saying the rosary, which was in his hands, and he was very, very white in complexion. I could see one fight up that people were coming out of a staircase and they didn't know which way to exit, it seemed, left or right. And I said, if I make my way up that way, I can help them exit quicker. And I made my way up an escalator that had already been shut down, and I made my way over to that staircase, and they always tell you know where you are in a building. And I was staircase C of the North Tower, and I remember it was double doors, steel doors, they opened outwards, and people were coming out of the stairs, and I would tell them 200 feet to your right, and down an escalator, and you made it out the building. And we were evacuating a good amount of people at that point, and no one was panicking, and it was going very, very smoothly. And right behind me, on the other side of the windows, the glass for the World Trade Center, which was right there, the windows, it was horrific, the sight, and yet the people, no one was panicking. So I always bring that up because I say it was like a third grade fire drill in the school where the kids all listen. They walk single file and nobody says a word, and that's how the building was being evacuated. So I was so proud of everyone coming out of the building and so orderly. And I recall seeing a blind man coming down the stairs, and two people were holding him, helping him walk, and somebody else had his dog. And just seeing people help each other and evacuate the building so smoothly was calming and a pleasant view for me, you know, to see everyone helping each other. And this was going on for quite some time, it seemed, and then all of a sudden I hear a loud noise from above, and I knew something's collapsing, but I don't know what. And I jump in that stairway, I close the doors, and the noise gets so loud, it's deafening. It's twisting metal and everything, and everything's going black. And I said to myself, well, this is it. It's a matter of moments, and it's going to be over. And then I was still alive. I was stuck in a staircase. I was stuck in that staircase. I tried to get the door open. I couldn't. Everything went silent. Right after the collapse, everything was silent. And then I heard people on the other side of the door yelling, help, help. And I said, these are the same people. I just told them one more flight to go. And now they're on the other side of the door calling for help. So tried getting the door open. I couldn't. And with the help of an emergency service cop, John DeLara, he and I started bowing our bodies into the door, and we got the door open. And, I said to him, I remember said, you stay here, I'm going to go find those people. I remember shining my flashlight, and I had trouble seeing because everything was blowing around, getting in my eyes, and kind of cutting into my eyes. And I said, if you can see my light, come to my light. And about 15 people came to my light. And I remember putting their hands on the wall and saying, follow this wall back till you get to the doorway and go in there. And they did. And I went back to that escalator, and there was two police officers there. They were getting up and dusting themselves off. They were Port Authority police officers. And I remember I asking them, I said, are you guys all right? They said, yeah. I said, if I bring you some people, you can lead them out. He said, yeah. I said, good. And I said, I'm going to bring you some people. And I went back to that stairwell, and there was a stairway full of people. And I remember grabbing the first woman's hand, and I said, walk, don't run, hold hands. I said, I don't care if you don't know the person next to you. Hold hands, and we're going to get out of here. And I grabbed her hand, an Asian woman, and I led her to the police. I handed her off, and then the procession of people coming out of that stairway began once again, with people holding hands, everybody following each other. And I went back halfway, and I was lighting up the area with my flashlight. It was completely dark. There was debris on the floor. And then John Delara, the emergency service cop, came over, and he was lighting up the area with his flashlight also. And in the history of New York, emergency service cops and rescue firemen, we don't get along at all. And him and I just started talking. I said, "When did you get on the police department?" And he said 85 also, 84 rather, 84. I said, "So did I." And then I said, "Where are you from?" He said, ESU 2, which was Harlem. And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, Rescue 5, which was Staten Island. And he said, "We both come from opposite ends of New York to respond to this." I said, "Yeah, we have." And then he said to me, he said, "What are we doing getting along like this?" And I said, "I guess it takes the World Trade Center to come down for us to get along." And we were joking and laughing. And then out of nowhere, he said to me, I remember he was saying, "I have a wife, Carol, at home." And I said, "I have a wife, Cynthia." And he said he had a 7-year-old son, and I said, "I have a 6-year-old son." And then he said, "I have a 2-year-old son," and I said, "I have a 2-month-old son." And for the next 10 minutes or something, that's what we talked about, our wives and our kids. And then the people coming past us were far and few in between. He said, "Maybe we should go back and see who's left at that door, at that staircase." And I said, "Yeah, maybe we should." As soon as we got to the staircase, his boss pointed at me, and I remember him pointing at me. He said, "I think we should get out of this building now." And I said, "Yeah, maybe you're right." And I said, "We go together, we stay together, we make decisions together." And I said, "Let's count off." And there was a total of 8 of us, and it was myself, 3 other firemen, and they were carrying down a heavy-set civilian, and they were taking a break at that landing. And then there was the 2 cops, John Delara and Sergeant Curtin, and then another cop who was off duty. And we all decided to leave together. And when we got to that escalator that led down, I said, "This is the way I came in." And they all said, "We came in the door over this way." I said, "I'll follow. Let's go." We go together. And when we got to that door, we had to go across about a 20-foot wide alleyway, which had no covering over it, and debris was falling from above. And John Delara said, "I'll run first." He had no gear, and he ran. He looked up. He said, "All right, it's safe. Run." And we all ran across that little narrow alleyway. And now we were underneath cover of the building, which is 5 World Trade Center. And I picked out a window about 40 feet away, which was already broken out. And I said, "If anything happens, that's the window I'm going for." And we weren't out of the building 30 seconds, and then I heard that building coming down on top of us. I never looked up. I took 1 step towards that window and got blown about 40 feet in the air. I remember hitting the wall. I fell down. I climbed into the window on my second attempt, and I put my head under a desk, and I started getting buried. And it's at that point I said goodbye to my wife, and I said goodbye to my 2 kids. And when I said goodbye to my little guy, 2 months old, I remember saying, "Man, you'll never know your dad." And that really hurt. That was probably the most painful part of the day for me when I had to do that. And then I estimated that building came down in about 45 seconds, but I find out now it was 11 seconds that it came down in. I was buried, but I was still alive. I remember putting my finger in my mouth to create an airway so I can breathe. I dug myself out of the building material that was on top of me and all. And I looked around the room now, and it was me and 3 other firemen that were left. And it took us about an hour to find our way out of that room, but we did. We had to jump down about 25 feet or so into a pile of debris. And one of the young firemen says, "What are we going to do now?" I said, "Let's just stay here." I said, "Let the smoke lift," because you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. And I said, when the smoke lifts, we could decide where we're going to go. I said, "But if you hear that noise or something collapse and run." I remember I said, "But I don't know, you know which way to run, you know?" And then after a while, it seems the smoke lifted. We made out a staircase in the distance. And that staircase is what they call survivor staircase these days. Made our way down the staircase. I remember going up to a deli about a block and a half away, and a police officer was there, and he says, "Are you all right?" I said, "No, I can't breathe and I can't see, and tough time walking." And he brought me inside. He washed me off with some water and a towel, and he said, "What else can I do for you?" I said, "You got to call my wife." And we tried, and the cell phone and the hardwired phones were down. There was no phone service, and he said, "What else can I do?" I said, "I got to report him to a chief. I got to let him know where I'm at." And we walked up the block further, and there was a fire chief there I knew, and I remember telling him, I walked up to him, I saluted, I said, "Chief, there's been a collapse. I've lost some men. We got to go back and get them." And he said to me, "We lost a lot of guys here today." He said, "Get in the ambulance and get out of here." I got in the ambulance. I was taken up to a hospital on 96th Street, I believe it is, in Manhattan Metropolitan Hospital. When I got into the emergency room, they wanted to know what my main injuries were, and I said, "Wait, you're not doing anything until you call my wife." And one of the nurses on a cell phone got through to my wife, and I remember telling her, I said, "These are the guys I was with. I know where they're at." I said, "They have to look for them," and she was writing down names as I was telling her the guys that I had seen. And then that night in the hospital, I got a call from my brother-in-law. He's in my company, Rescue 5 also, and he told me, "Bill, they were all gone." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "All the guys were gone from that morning." So there was 12 of us that were working that day, and I was the only one to live, you know. So all the guys that had breakfast were dead. And then I got a call that evening right after that from my wife, and she said, "Did you get the news?" And I remember telling her I did. And she said, "What about the other news?" And I said, "What other news?" And she said, "Your Uncle Joe was on Flight 93 that went down in Pennsylvania in Shanksville." So I remember that's my Uncle Joe Driscoll, and I remember telling her, "Listen," I said, "this is the worst day of my life." I said, "You can tell me my son failed out of school today, his first day. I'd be happy with it. It wouldn't affect me." And she said, No, everything's good." And I said, "All right." I said, "Don't worry about me." I said, "I'll be home in a few days." I said, "I'm going to live." I said, "But I'll be here." I said, "I'll be here a few days." And so I got to the hospital 3 days later, and I made it home, and glad to see my wife and kids. But the firehouse, when you have a firehouse, it has about 25 guys in each company. And we just lost 11, and then me is 12. So that's like about half the company lost in one day, you know? So never the same, and I don't go back there too often at all, you know? When I did get back to the firehouse, and I never worked again after 9/11. I had injuries that forced my retirement. But one thing is that they told me, "Bill, you have to go to counseling." Everybody is, has to go to counseling, whatever. And I went to counseling, and me and the one counselor, we didn't get along. But I know I needed to talk to someone to get it off my chest and everything. And I saw a counselor through the American Red Cross for 4 years, and that helped, and that's how I'm able to talk about the events. And to this day now, I do volunteering, and there's a place called the Tribute Center. Right. So since 2007, I've been involved there, giving tours and all, over 250 tours now. And I also volunteer at the 9/11 Museum. Each Friday I'm there from 10 to 2, and I meet people and talk about artifacts. So about twice a week I try to do the volunteering there, and on Monday I run a group of retired firemen that play golf. So I get to see 20 guys or something that are firemen. We golf and have a good time. So that takes up pretty much of my time, besides being an Uber driver for my son, my 16-year-old, 15-year-old. Just drive him wherever he's got to go. And now you have all the Sweet 16 parties every weekend. So that's what I've become since then,
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry for everything, and
thank you.
You are such a really strong person to be able to talk about this, and being in the position that you were in, it's really it hit me when you were talking about it. And
thank you.
You're so
one thing I always like to get across, like, so now sometimes I'm given platforms to speak, and one thing I always talk about is my counseling.
Yeah.
That's now number one is my counseling, and I always tell kids and everything that that no matter how tough you have it, don't think it's the end of the world or anything like that, because there's always someone you can talk to, and once you tell someone, you relieve the burden off your chest, and you feel the load is a lot less, and you can get through anything with the help of others, you know. And I always give my talk, and I always talk about counseling and for the kids and all. And at one school, a Delaware school, once I spoke, and then one of the teachers came up to me and said, "Thank you. We've had like three suicides here in the last 2 years." And so you telling them means a lot more than even us just saying it, you know. So I always try to get that point across. And then the other thing is, people always ask. In the beginning, they used to ask questions, and they'd say, "Well, how has it changed your life?" You know, that would be a question I'd be asked. How has it changed your life? And my answer is, I go to bed every single night, and I say, thank you for this day on earth, you know. And I say, if I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to make tomorrow better than today was. And so I always have positive thoughts. I always look forward to the next day if it comes around, because we're never guaranteed anything, you know. And enjoy life.
That is so nice.
Yeah, thank you.
That is so nice. So I have another question.
Go ahead.
Did you like when you went to counseling? Did they like say that you like suffered from like PTSD?
Oh. Yeah, they did. At the very beginning, I guess sometimes we're worse than others, you know. For me, and one time they wanted to put me on medicine, but I refused to go on medicine because I don't like that, you know, with my, I didn't think I was that bad, that it's just something I needed time to get over with, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go any, I don't like medicines unless I really need it, you know. I said, just give me, you know, another 3-4 months on therapy and talking, and time will heal, you know. And but you know, a big thing was my son. A lot of times they say you have survivor's guilt, and you wish you were dead, you know, or you wish you joined them, you know. And I didn't have that, because I fought so hard to live because of my 2-month-old, you know. And what sense would it be making for me to kill myself and leave him behind, you know? So that was a big thing. And, you know, it wasn't easy. After 9/11, things weren't easy. Financially, things were very tough for me. And then you got to remember, after 9/11, it was, I had 11 funerals to go to, you know? And if you break it down, it's about one a week. That's 11 weeks. That's almost 3 months of funerals, you know? And that's what we did. We went to, you'd have a wake on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, or a Thursday, you know, maybe a Wednesday and a Thursday would be the wake, and then Friday would be the burial, you know? And then you get ready for the next week, and the next week would be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday burial, and you do that for 11 weeks, you know? So all the families had to coordinate their things so they weren't at the same time, you know, and people wanted it at different times. If it was someone's birthday coming up, maybe they would want it on his birthday, you know, things like that. So there was a lot involved with just going through that. And as firefighters, we all attend as many funerals for the guys as we can, you know, and there was 343 deaths. And I was attending funerals of guys that I knew outside my company of 11, you know. So I think when I went through it one day, I knew 85 guys who died that day, you know. So it's a lot. I remember I was going to funerals and just kind of trying to map it out where the next one was going to be, and make as many. And then after a week or so of that, a couple of days of that, I realized I can't make every one, you know. And that was silly, you know. So I was just trying to make the ones on Staten Island or whatever, make it easier for myself. Plus I was going to the doctors 2-3 times a week for doctor's appointments, and trying to get better. So that was tough after that, but, I always said one thing is, people always say to me, what about your injuries or something like that? I said, I don't talk about them because there's 2,753 people that would trade places with me to still be alive, today. So no sense me dwelling on that, and nobody really wants to hear about your injuries, and I just make the best of every day,
Yeah.
So.
Because you still need the time to recover for yourself,
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So every September 11th now, I kind of treat it as a Thanksgiving. I'm thankful to be alive, and I love being surrounded by family on that day. To me, it's my real Thanksgiving.
That is so nice, and it's kind of ironic. I was born on Thanksgiving Day, so.
You are?
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm a Thanksgiving baby, so I have to be thankful for everything, and it's really nice to hear that you're giving back to your community, and you're teaching kids about learning that you have to go through stuff, and it's not the end of the world, and you just pick right back up.
Right. You're right. There's always. I remember once when I was a cop and I was driving to work and I saw a man with one leg, and I said, "Oh, I feel sorry for that guy." And it was right around the holidays,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it was. And I said, "Oh, I feel so bad for that guy with one leg."
Mm-hmm.
And then I changed into my uniform, and one of my first calls I got, and there was a guy there with no legs, And I said, wow, how that guy would probably trade places to be the guy with one leg,
Yeah.
So with that, I said to myself, there's always someone in the worse than you are. Don't feel bad,
Yeah.
So.
True. Thank you so much for this interview.
No problem. I hope you get an A. Let me know how you do, all right?
Okay, thank you so much.
If you need me to talk to the teacher, I can convince them, all right?
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
All righty, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.